Unsolved, the mysterious death of a small-town mayor. In the quiet town of Oak Ridge, nestled deep within the rolling hills of the American Midwest, life moved at a slower pace. The community was tight-knit, where everyone knew everyone else's business, and the town's affairs were often discussed at the local diner over cups of steaming black coffee. Oak Ridge was the kind of place where doors were rarely locked, and the biggest scandal involved Mrs. Johnson's prized rose bush being trampled by a runaway dog. But everything changed on a cool autumn morning in 1992 when the lifeless body of Mayor Thomas Caldwell was discovered in his office at Town Hall. A shocking discovery. It was the town's custodian, an elderly man named Frank, who first stumbled upon the grim scene. He had arrived early, as he always did, to clean up before the town hall opened. The sun had barely begun to rise, casting long shadows through the building's tall, frosted windows. As Frank entered the mayor's office, the sight before him made him drop his mop and bucket with a crash. Mayor Caldwell sat slumped in his leather chair, his head resting awkwardly against the back, eyes wide open in a blank stare. His skin had taken on a pale, bluish hue, and a pool of blood had formed beneath his desk. The source of the blood was clear, a single gunshot wound to the chest, right above his heart. Frank stumbled backward in shock, rushing to call the local sheriff, Hank Miller, who had been Caldwell's childhood friend. Within minutes, the sheriff arrived, and soon the town was buzzing with the devastating news. Their beloved mayor was dead. A man of many faces. Thomas Caldwell had been Oak Ridge's mayor for nearly 2 decades. To the public, he was seen as an upstanding man, charming, kind, and always ready to lend a helping hand. He'd brought improvements to the town, including a new library and a revitalized park, and was known for his passionate speeches about Oak Ridge's future. But as investigators from the state police began digging into Caldwell's life, they uncovered a different story. Beneath the mayor's polished exterior, there were whispers of corruption, secret deals, and a personal life that wasn't as perfect as it seemed. Rumors began circulating that Caldwell had been involved in illegal real estate schemes, pocketing kickbacks from developers eager to build on Oak Ridge's untouched land. There were also murmurs about his marriage to his wife, Linda. While they appeared to be the perfect couple in public, those close to them knew that the marriage had been strained for years. Caldwell was often seen at the local bar late at night, drinking heavily and talking to women who weren't his wife. With this information, the question on everyone's mind became, was this really a suicide? Or had Caldwell's secret life caught up with him? The investigation begins. The initial investigation led nowhere. Sheriff Miller, deeply affected by the loss of his childhood friend, was convinced that Caldwell had taken his own life. He cited the mayor's growing stress, rumors of his failing marriage, and the pressures of his office. The gun found at the scene, a Smith & Wesson revolver, was Caldwell's own, registered in his name. However, not everyone was convinced. The gunshot wound was in an unusual spot for a suicide, and there were no powder burns on Caldwell's hands, which would have been expected if he had fired the weapon himself. Furthermore, his office showed no signs of struggle, but a window was slightly ajar, unusual for a chilly autumn night. Detective Sarah Cole, a young investigator from the state police who had been sent to assist with the case, wasn't buying the suicide theory. She began interviewing the people closest to Caldwell, starting with his wife, Linda. Linda Caldwell, the grieving widow. Linda Caldwell was a picture of grief when Detective Cole visited her home. Her eyes were red and swollen, and she clutched a handkerchief in her trembling hands. But something about her demeanor seemed off to Cole. Linda was overly composed, her answers rehearsed as if she had practiced them in front of a mirror. When asked about her marriage, Linda admitted that things had been tough. She knew about Thomas's late-night outings and had long suspected that he was having affairs, but she claimed that they had been trying to work through their problems. Still, Cole sensed a deep undercurrent of resentment in Linda's voice, something unspoken that lingered in the air. Could Linda have been involved in her husband's death? Cole wondered. Jealousy and anger were powerful motives, but there was no hard evidence linking her to the crime. Despite her suspicions, Cole knew she needed more to go on. The mysterious businessman. As the investigation progressed, another name began to surface. Edward Lawson, a real estate developer who had been trying to buy land in Oak Ridge for years. Lawson had deep pockets and wasn't afraid to grease the palms of those in power to get what he wanted. Caldwell had always been seen as a defender of Oak Ridge's small-town charm, but there were whispers that Lawson had made Caldwell an offer he couldn't refuse. When Cole tracked down Lawson for questioning, he was as smooth and evasive as she expected. He denied any involvement in Caldwell's death and claimed that while they had met a few times to discuss potential projects, nothing had ever come of it. Still, Cole couldn't shake the feeling that Lawson knew more than he was letting on. The breakthrough. As the weeks went by, the town of Oak Ridge grew restless. The mayor's death was the talk of every conversation, and suspicions ran wild. The sheriff still clung to the idea of suicide, but Cole had found too many inconsistencies to let it go. She continued digging through Caldwell's finances and communications, searching for something, anything, that would break the case wide open. One night, she received a tip from an anonymous source. A man claiming to have seen Caldwell arguing with someone outside his office the night before his death. The witness had been hesitant to come forward, afraid of retaliation, but he described the man as tall, wearing a dark coat, and leaving in a black sedan with tinted windows. Suddenly, everything clicked. The witness's description matched Edward Lawson. Cole immediately ordered a deeper investigation into Lawson's activities, and soon enough, she uncovered a connection. Caldwell had been receiving payments from a shell company linked to Lawson. It appeared that Caldwell had agreed to allow Lawson to develop a large plot of land on the outskirts of town, but something had gone wrong. Caldwell must have tried to back out of the deal, and Lawson, desperate to protect his investment, had taken matters into his own hands. The unsolved conclusion. Despite this breakthrough, the evidence was still circumstantial. Lawson's wealth and connections made it difficult to pin him down, and without definitive proof, the case began to stall. Sheriff Miller refused to pursue the new leads, unwilling to believe that his old friend had been murdered in cold blood years past, and the case grew colder. Oak Ridge moved on, though the shadow of Thomas Caldwell's mysterious death continued to haunt the town. Detective Cole never forgot the case, convinced that Edward Lawson had orchestrated the murder, but unable to bring him to justice. To this day, the death of Mayor Thomas Caldwell remains officially unsolved, a lingering mystery in the quiet town of Oak Ridge. Locals still whisper about what really happened that fateful autumn night, but the truth remains buried, just like the mayor himself. And somewhere, perhaps in the shadows of a high-rise office or a dimly lit boardroom, the man who took Caldwell's life continues to walk free, his secret safe. For now. This story blends elements of small-town mystery, corruption, and betrayal, leaving the reader intrigued by the unresolved case. Share this video and like this. Subscribe this channel.